The role of human resources, HR. Let's hop into it. Let's talk about the role of human resources. And I included this section because I have seen a lot of comments in Facebook groups and talking to Black women where Black women are like, and I'm going to CC HR too because the boss is doing something. And I always kind of just hold my breath because the reality of it is HR is not on your team, right? So let's talk about specifically, honestly, like accurately, what is the role of HR and then how that plays out for people of color, if you will. Okay, so one, the role of HR is to supply human capital. Now, if you watch overview of the system, which I hope that you have, then I talk a little bit more about business being a part of a system and your organization being part of that process, and that it has an objective, and that in order for it to meet its objective, historically it has needed people. Now, in the future, it may need computers or robots, but today it still needs people. So, the role of HR is to supply the business with human capital, right? So that it meets its objectives. And key tasks that they perform under this kind of pillar or in this step of their process is recruiting, making offers, onboarding you, getting you kind of all set up in order to get into step two, doing your job, right? And so the second thing that HR does is manage human capital. Notice I did not say be your friend. Not, I didn't say provide you with warm and fuzzy benefits. These may be things that they do provide in order for you to come to work because their objective or their goal is to provide the organization with human capital so that the organization meets its objective. So the goal is to create systemic policy processes, etc., to manage the people in an efficient and effective manner, right? So they want to do this as simply and efficiently as possible to kind of get a large number of people, when we think about big business, through the process in the door in order to perform those functions in order for the business to meet its objectives. And I keep saying for the business to meet its objective for a reason, so stay with me. Now, key tasks that they perform under the manage human capital pillar is performance management, talent management, learning and development, even diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are all things that come under the premise of managing the people that are within our system in order to get them to a place where they are executing on their tasks so that the business can meet its objective. And then last but not least, we have step three, which is protect the system. This is the core fundamental of HR. Protect the system. I know I should have put it first, but in the order of things, it doesn't feel like that until you get in the system. And then, like in the beginning, you don't realize they have something to protect. But once you're in it, you can kind of see that their core function is to protect the system. And this is why people burn out in HR, because HR is not for the people, it's for the business. Everything that they do is with the understanding of protecting the system. So when your boss does something, it is in HR's best interest to protect that boss. It is in HR's best interest to protect that boss because the role and function of HR is to protect the system, i.e., your organization. So, in order to get HR to move on your behalf, You can't just like CC them. When you CC them, it tells them that you are a red flag and they need to protect the system from you. They are going to try to protect your boss because, based on the hierarchical function, it's easier to sever ties with you than it is with them. It costs the system more if they are at fault for him, right? So if we think of something like quid pro quo, or your boss sexually harassing, or something like major like that, right? That is a problem. But the system is better served or better protected to pretend it doesn't exist unless you have indisputable evidence to prove said action took place. This is why understanding how the system works and what I'm saying may be pissing you off, and I get that. But it doesn't negate how it works. And so remember, I said that if your goal is to take it down, if your goal is to not be in it, all of that is still contingent upon you understanding how it works. If your boss is being racist to you, if they are doing things that are against violations, HR violations, human violations, you have to be able to prove it. And the better way to prove it is not saying he or she did this to me, is to show that it's in their character to be racist. They said X thing to X person on this date and time. That's what we mean when we say you got to document it. When you document just the interactions between you and them, it'll be flipped upside down and turned and gaslighted to you for sure. Because the objective is to protect the organization from the people. That is the role of HR. HR is to supply the organization with the people so that they execute the objective of the organization. And then on the backside of that is to protect the organization from said people, right? So if you want HR to move on your behalf, then you have to be documenting, and you have to be documenting actions that are broader than you, that show that it extends beyond use, that is pervasive, is probably the word. And I think that's how legislative word or compliance type regulatory words are as well. Pervasive. So I'm going to give you an example. When I was coming up, my first boss was Black. And we had, let's say, a mid to older white lady on our team, and she was not performing her job as that boss thought that she should. Wasn't my job. I don't know if she was or not. It's just going with what I heard. And then she, back in the days where you would, get warnings or strikes, she had two strikes. So that meant that she only needed one more write up, and then he could officially let her go. Well, in between that second and forthcoming third write up, she took a leave of absence. Now, I just thought she was out of the office. I didn't understand why she was out of the office, but she was out of the office. Well, here's why she was out of the office. Put you up on game. She was out of the office and had ultimately taken a mental health break. Now, people take mental health breaks or take a leave of absence because they get a doctor to write them a prescription, if you will, during that time, right? To say that they need some time off mental anguish. But she took it a step further. Knowing that her third step was coming, normally after most people do it nowadays, they go back to work. She didn't. She went to HR and she said, hey, I had to take this mental health break because said boss was creating a hostile work environment. And they said, okay, how so? Well, she had documented. She didn't document what he specifically said to her or did to her. I'm not saying she didn't. But when HR called me to ask questions, they had specific actions he had taken on specific dates and time. An example, when they first called, I was like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not a snitch, so I don't want to answer the questions. And HR was like, you don't have a choice. All you need to do is say yes or no to the questions I'm going to ask you. Seems simple enough, right? Okay. One of the questions HR said was, on this date and this time, did he use a curse word during the staff meeting? Yes. On this date and this time, did he yell at Susie in front of everyone and she started crying? Yes. On this date and this time, did he throw, albeit a spongy type of brick, but did he throw that brick against the wall? Yes. What she had done, and you take from this what you want to, was document that he was the problem, not her. And she could prove it. She had witnesses that the experience was pervasive that he was creating. So guess who got written up? Guess who got to keep their job? That is what has to happen in order for HR or for you to leverage HR for your good instead of against you. But also know that even when you do that, there is a price to be paid to your reputation because people are going to talk no matter how big the organization is. But if you work in an organization where leaders turn over every 6 months and people come and go, then it may be worth the risk. If you work in an organization where the people been there 20, 30 years, it might not be worth the risk. You might be better served to move on. Now, I'm saying all that to say and to remind you that HR is not your friend. However, on the flip of that, there are things within the HR process that having allies in HR can be a plug, if you will, to help you move your career along. That includes the talent planning process. Whether you know it or not, there's a process within HR where people are sitting around a table discussing you or not discussing you, where they are deciding who's going to get that top tier in performance reviews. It's a debate almost because everybody thinks it should be their person. So the person who has the most influence, the most power, who has the strongest argument for their person is going to win. So sometimes when you don't get it and your boss says, I tried, but they couldn't, what it might be telling you is that your boss doesn't hold enough weight. They don't in and of themselves have enough power. And that's something for you to know because it likely means it's time for you to move on. Right? And as you move up, anything above, even at director, but certainly above director, people sit around and talk. In these talent planning, they're talking about who are the emerging leaders in our team, who is up and coming, who's ready for a promotion. And you want to be in that conversation. And a lot of times, knowing the person in HR, if you have a good human resource business partner, they are someone who can throw your name in the mix where the people in the room might not think of you. So the HR relationship can be leveraged for good from that capacity. HR can tell you, hey, there's a role open over in X department that I think you might be good at. Let me know if you're interested. I might make mention to the hiring manager, right? Like, so having a relationship with HR, at least your HR business partner, can be useful. But as Black women, as a woman of color, typically it's not useful to say, hey, I'm being mistreated. It's not useful to say, hey, I think my boss is racist to your HR partner. If they're doing their job, which they will, even if they look like us, you are now a red flag. So you have to be strategic about it, and you have to be willing to pay the price or the cost to going to HR if you're going to go to HR. Now, after watching this, sis, if you sit in HR and you disagree, I'm open to other people's experiences or for further insight around it. Bring it to the Facebook community. Remember, we operate in love, and as long as the context is in love, then we can have a candid or open conversation about it. If you have questions, if you have gone to HR and had different results, I'm here for the community experience and all the things. This slide is based on one, my own personal experience, but having coached an abundant amount of not just Black women, but women of color. Because I will tell you that the system protects the system, no matter what color. I have had um, an Asian client who had a Black woman as a boss, and she went and told HR and her boss's boss. And within 90 days, they were trying to fire her. So it's not always specific to, i.e., us being Black women, but rather this is how the system works. And understanding, like the woman in the story I gave you did, how to leverage the system for your protection instead of it protecting against you. All right. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on the role of HR in the Facebook community. Come holla at your girl.